We are on. It is October 1st, 2015, and first day of Halloween. Oh my gosh. So all the seniors are here. Say hello to your fellow seniors. Hello, fellow seniors. Seniors. Hello. And there's some over here too. Say hi. Hi. How you doing? Okay.
She's on her phone.
Yeah, exactly, right? Right.
Someone else's phone.
So, I'm a little out of uniform, but this hat and these are called pootees. The pootee is here. It is the leggings that soldiers wore in World War I.
Please be careful.
Don't bonk your head.
Wait.
These are leg wrappings that keep the dirt out of your boots and shoes. And they had to know how to do these wrappings. This is not World War I. This is World War I. So these two items, the pootees and the hat, were pop the buttons on the jacket. Were my great grandfather's, Ellis Buck, who fought in World War I. He volunteered for the Army, and he was put into the Signal Corps. And the Signal Corps had to run phone lines through the trenches to keep everybody connected, officers with their men and all that kind of stuff.
Did they have telecommunications going from like French to Germany, like over the trench line?
Phone lines?
Yeah. Could the leaders communicate during the war?
I don't think so.
No.
Because we do know that as far as communication goes, that the leaders were communicating via, it wasn't phone, I
Like
think it
letters
was
and stuff.
telegram or telegraph. Telegrams. So there had to be some kind of lines connecting the capitals, but during the war, I don't know how well their communication was with each other. If they cut off communications
Like your
because of the war.
Interesting.
No, we'll shot
Hey.
you.
All right. So that was a good question. I don't know if the capitals were able to communicate, but in the trenches, they had to communicate with phone lines. And quite often, those phone lines would be cut by artillery. A shell would come in, blow up, had to restring the lines. So that's what my grandfather did. And of course, while you were in the trenches, you wouldn't wear that hat. You'd wear this hat. This is the helmet of the World War I soldier. Would not stop a bullet, but it might deflect a glancing blow, or if there was artillery coming and things flying around, you could put your head down and hopefully have some protection. Okay, so we talked about last time how the United States was drawn into World War I. What were some of the things that pulled us in?
Unrestricted submarine.
Sinking Lusitania is a good example of something much broader, because that happens in 1915, and we didn't go to war until 1917. Thank you, John. Unrestricted submarine warfare.
Because I did my thing on Germans, and
Yeah.
I read that they tried to bring Mexico and turn them against us.
Yes. What was that note called? The Zimmerman telegram, or the Zimmerman note.
Did you send?
What's that?
Did you send that? The telegraph. Did you send that to Mexico?
Oh. When they asked the Germans.
Yeah.
They asked Zimmerman, did you send it? And he said, yes.
Did you send a conspiring telegram? Well, yeah.
And the Russian Revolution. What part of the Russian Revolution is bringing the United States closer to war against the Central Powers?
After the Russians surrendered in Germany, they weren't fighting anymore, so Russia pulled out of the war, but then the United States joined it.
Yes, the Russians pull out of the war because of the revolution. The Germans win that half of the war, which we don't usually think about that, and then are able to divert all their troops to invading Paris. So today we're going to wrap up the war. We're going to see how the American push to get into the war sort of called the bluff or the gamble of the German High Command. Because the German High Command, what's the gamble for them in respect to the Americans?
I think it was if they could destroy all the supplies and stuff and like end the war before they had a chance, then like it would already be won before they could do anything.
Right, they destroy the supplies with what?
Like all the
Stop
troops
prepared.
like headed to Britain so they couldn't defend themselves.
Right. Using what weapons?
Submarines.
Submarines. So they're going to ramp up the submarine attacks, unrestricted submarine warfare, full throttle as far as they can make it happen. And they're also hoping to sink, besides cargo ships, what else?
Troop ships.
Troop ships. We're going to see today how they did not sink any troop ships. That failed. So the Germans are taking a huge gamble. The gamble is that they can ramp up the war against the United States. And that will allow them to win the war before the U.S. can make a difference. Okay, what does AAF stand for? Anyone know?
American or Expeditionary Force.
Yes, American Expeditionary Force. This is a little bit of review. So when the war broke out in 1917, we only had 120,000 men in the Army.
Expeditionary Force.
Yeah. So we have to create the American Expeditionary Force so that it can go on an expedition to France. Perspective, the British Army alone lost 177,000 men in May and June of 1917. So 120,000 is a drop in the bucket of what's needed. Now, of course, we're hoping not to lose that many men and have those kinds of casualties when we get there, but we're going to see that we did have casualties, a lot. So, how do we get those men? They're drafted mostly. Well, well, I can't say mostly. There are a lot of men who volunteered to register or volunteered for the military. Propaganda posters like the ones you made yesterday were all about encouraging men to enlist. But when enlistments ran low, they went to a draft. Right, so these next few images are taken from newspapers from the time period, like this one. This is a gun crew loading an artillery piece, which is hopefully outdated and small. We've seen the artillery pieces that they're using in Europe with the big 500-pound shells. They need cranes and chains and levers and pulleys to even load these things. This is a small field piece. What else about this looks antiquated?
Horse.
Horse, yeah, we're using horses still,
Wow.
right? So definitely not a World War I era-ready kind of thing. How about this image? American cavalry at practice charge. When the United States cavalry gets into action, there is nothing like it for speed, dash, and daring. These are cavalrymen at drill at Camp Bowie near San Antonio, Texas. Wow. Is there a bit of naivety going on here with what's going on in France?
Yeah,
This is never.
they tried horses and they
Yeah, 4 years earlier, these guys were mowed down in Europe with machine guns. What are they thinking? They thinking we're just going to go and do it different? Yeah.
I heard that in like World War II, I think, when Germany invaded Poland with tanks, they just had horses or something.
The Germans?
No, the Polish
The
people.
the Polish army did have a cavalry and tried to defend the Blitzkrieg with it. Didn't work. Yeah.
Can I just get like a timeline?
Yes.
When did we make the decision officially to go to war, and what time did we get troops over to Europe?
Yeah, so it's spring, what is it, April, I think, 1917, when we declared war. Let's see, what month did they actually get there? That's a good question. Let me see if we have it in the PowerPoint, because I don't have that month in my head. These are the propaganda posters that were encouraging men to join. Yeah.
Did like the U.S. ever put propaganda in like Great Britain, or because like because my poster I did it on like reporting submarine activity. If you see it, so like I would think the U.S. might put that propaganda up to inspire Britain. I don't know. I was just wondering.
Well, I mean, you gotta think about your audience. Do the British need inspiring from us? I mean, I don't know.
Yeah.
Do we in what way? I mean,
Columbia's
Because didn't like Britain like really want us in the war, and that's why we kind of took the Zimmerman telegram as a bluff at first.
yeah, we questioned its authenticity. The Zimmerman telegram seemed like that's gotta be crazy. Why would they do that? Then we suspected the British of sort of planting that, and we figured out that wasn't true. So, as far as typically the propaganda is toward your own people with the message you want to get across, and all of these are asking people to join the military, you know. And look how far this. You thought this was. You've seen this before, haven't you? I want you, or Uncle Sam wants you. That's back to World War I. And as Perry pointed out, Columbia has returned. One of our favorite gals. I don't know when the last time Columbia sort of makes her appearance. She kind of fades, you know, into popularity. The Statue of Liberty sort of takes over her position, I think. I don't know. All right, so this is General Blackjack Pershing. He is the chosen general for the AEF. He was plucked out of Mexico.
That's where you're from.
Yeah, you've heard the name before because he was chasing Pancho Villa in Mexico, trying to find the rebel leader who had invaded the United States at Columbus, New Mexico, and so he was there looking for him, and they pulled him out because we knew war was imminent with Germany. So he's the one with the most experience. He's been actively engaged. Not with more of combat, but more with logistics of moving men and supplies. And the raid on the search for Pancho Villa was the first time the American military used trucks, mechanical vehicles instead of just horses and wagons. So that was a huge advantage to Pershing and being able to organize men and supplies and materials. So he puts it together. Selective Service Act. That's where you registered for the draft. Okay, 1970. 5 million men drafted. There's just not enough men volunteering because only 2 million volunteered to be in the Army. You know, this is a controversial war for some people. They think, well, it's not our war. Why should I join? I'm sure there's a lot of mothers out there telling their sons, no, don't go. And of that 7 million, 2 million were actually sent to France, which is a large number of soldiers actually getting there. And another interesting fact here, 400,000 Americans were African American soldiers, and this is a segregated army. In fact, the term blackjack was a reference to Pershing's earlier part of his career in the cavalry in the Indian Wars. As the Indian Wars were winding down, he was in charge of buffalo soldiers. The buffalo soldiers. Bob Marley sings the song. Should I sing it? No,
That's a good song.
Buffalo soldiers. Yeah, you laugh. In the fight for America, stolen from Africa. So he was in charge, and his name was John. So Jack, for some reason, is a nickname for John. I don't know why, because it's not any shorter. So blackjack is where he got the term. But this is the polite, public version of what they called him. They used the N-word behind closed doors. Shocked Germany. Not the fact that there are African Americans fighting, but that there are 2 million getting onto the battlefield. This was a huge blow to Germany. they were predicting that the American presence would not matter at all. 000 was the stated effect the German High Command said that the Americans would have on the war. That's not 0, that's 2 million. And so that's going to have a huge effect on the war. And just for fun, we got to bring in Snoopy. Snoopy's the favorite ace who flies his doghouse around and shoots at the Red Baron. And he's addressing General Pershing. Yes, sir. I'd like permission to speak to the General Pershing. Yes, it's a very delicate matter. Well, my brother who is in the infantry wants to know why they never get any tapioca pudding. Now, of course, as you know, pilots had a much better life than infantrymen in the trenches. So it's a sort of a line on that. This is an image of some African American soldiers relaxing, listening to some music. Interesting, though, besides the fact that you can tell this is a segregated unit, and the men are wearing their puttees covering their pants there. Whose image is on the wall behind the piano? Can you tell? Is it the President of the United States, Woodrow Wilson?
No, Teddy Roosevelt.
It's TR. TR. I wonder if African Americans know how racist the current president is, and they've left up the image of the old president who gave African Americans opportunities and chances and even met with Booker T. Washington in the White House, unlike Woodrow Wilson, who met with the Klan, at times. So I think it's fair. This is 1918, and TR is long out of office. Okay, naval operations, fighting the war. First, we got to get them there. So it's important to understand how 2 million men get across the Atlantic Ocean that's patrolled by submarines all around the coast. And I'm dying, so I'm going to...
Thanks for doing it for so long.
Breathing it. Lose weight. 20 pounds would be good. How did they get them there? Here are, again, these are old photographs. Years ago, I had somebody bring in a collection of old newspapers that they found in their grandmother's garage after she passed away. And she was from Chicago. And they were just stacks of brittle, old, brown newspaper. And so they were so fragile, I decided the only thing I could do with them would be to sort of harvest or glean what I could. And so all those posters back over there on the wall, the 3 black ones that I made are all from images, from that newspaper collection that I was given. And some of them made them into the PowerPoint as well. So they're actual newspapers prints that I collected. So how did they do it? They're called convoys. Convoys. I've got a picture of a convoy that didn't make it in my PowerPoint. I'll go get it. Convoys allowed ships to travel protected by the U.S. Navy. The ships traveled in rows. And these rows were rows of protection. So these warships would travel in rows, and there would be an inner safety of the troop ships, guarded by rows of military ships on the outside. So any submarines attempting to strike would have to go through one or two lines of military ships. And those military ships were constantly looking for the submarines. What were those ships called?
Destroyers.
Destroyers. And how did they look for them?
Sonar.
Sonar, yeah. So they'd listen. They'd also have watchmen in conning towers or crow's nests with binoculars looking for periscopes. And if they saw a periscope or they picked up the sonar ping, a destroyer would break out of formation and circle out there and drop what? Depth charges. Right? So those depth charges were set to the depth of the submarine to crack the hull. The concussion would break the metal. What's that?
So how tall would the periscope have to be?
Well, the periscope meant that the submarine was at torpedo depth. You have to shoot basically from just below the surface. If you shoot, from way down under.
Can they not see the boat? And it's like.
No, so the periscopes would have like an extension.
Yeah.
So that would they'd crank a crank and the periscope would go up, and so the submarine was just below the surface when you saw a periscope, just below, out of sight, but at periscope depth where maybe 10 feet below the water. You can't see 10 feet under the water. It's hidden there, but a periscope could go 10 feet up or 12 feet up.
That's what I was wondering, because I'm thinking of like a 3-foot thing that's 10 feet.
Yeah, no. Think about a telescoping pole that kind of goes in and out. Yeah. So, not one troop ship was ever hit by a torpedo. All 2 million soldiers made it across the Atlantic Ocean.
Would I destroy?
Huh? What's that?
Was a destroyer ever hit?
Was a destroyer ever hit? That's a good question. I've never done any, in-depth research on the convoys to know, like, how many, did they lose any naval vessels, like military vessels? That's a good question. Possibly. Of course, you're signing your death warrant. As soon as you launch that torpedo, they know you're there, right?
Yeah.
And so when they're in a convoy, you're not going to battle 2, 3, 4, or 5 destroyers. You're dead, right? That's sort of like a suicide mission. So I don't know how suicidal those captains were feeling on those U-boats. This is Blackjack Pershing arriving off the ship onto the docks in France, and it is said that he said, "Lafayette, we are here." Lafayette is a reference to
The battle.
not the battle. Does anyone know who Lafayette was? Have we forgotten that from sophomore year, probably? Lafayette was George Washington's favorite French general. Lafayette volunteered for the American Revolution from France and was actually put in charge of troops. In fact, he stayed on in America after the American Revolution because the French Revolution was so volatile, he didn't feel safe. So he bought a plantation in Virginia and actually bought African Americans and freed them
What a cool dude.
on his plantation, allowed them to work as laborers, get paid workers on his plantation instead of having slaves. Because he thought it was against the spirit of the American Revolution. So Lafayette, lots of things in the United States are named after him. And since he is French and he did help George Washington, Pershing is making the connection, Lafayette, we are here. We're here to pay back our debt we owe to France for helping us in the American Revolution. Because as you know, the King of France, Louis XVI, helped supply the United States with troops, money, weapons, and ships. And those ships, those French ships, the French fleet are the ones that stopped the British fleet from evacuating Yorktown, which allowed the United States and the French to defeat the British at Yorktown and win the American Revolution. So we probably could not have won the American Revolution without the aid of France. And so Pershing, knowing the history, making a very simple comment, says a lot about the connection between the United States and France. It's payback time for what you did to help us. We're here to help you now save your country. And as it turned out, we helped save their country.
He looked so moody.
Go ahead.
Like he looked so perfect. Like Like that, like what I mean, like his stance and like his build and everything. He looks like he looks like the general. Yeah,
He looks like
the
a
part.
general, doesn't he? He's got the roll down. Yeah.
So like whenever like we learn about the World War here, we're always told that like the U.S. is the savior to Europe. Do you think that in like Britain and France they teach it the same way, or do you think they put more emphasis on that?
Yeah, so the question was, in the United States, we have this Amerocentric view that we saved Europe 2 times. And you've even seen the bumper stickers, right? Sort of a bumper sticker mentality. You know, I think the United States actually did play a significant role, you know, at the end. So I think the Europeans would probably look at the Americans as showing up late. In fact, have you ever seen Chicken Run? That claymation? The old rooster is kind of upset with the fact that the young American rooster has got to share a room with him, share his bed. And, so the old rooster says, "Damned Yanks, oversexed over here, showing up late to every war." So it's a reference, obviously, to us being late. So I think maybe that's how the Europeans might look at it. We're late. But from the American perspective, it wasn't our war. So maybe you should be lucky we showed up at all. The bumper stickers are always talking about how we saved your butt in the war, right? Yeah.
You ever hear Mr. Ott's story about that?
No. What's Mr. Ott's story?
So Mr. Ott did a teaching kind of conference thing.
Oh, he taught in England.
Yep.
Yes.
And he said his first week he showed up late because he couldn't find the classroom. And like one of the older professors or something like yelled out, "Oh, the Americans always showing up late."
Yeah. So you see, the stereotype continues. Yeah, Mr. Ott showed up late for his teaching assignment in England, and they made a joke about that. Yep, damn Yanks. So here are the doughboys. Doughboy was a term they used in World War I. I believe it refers to the fact that Americans were pretty well fed. We weren't fat, but we weren't emaciated either. And so doughboy, I think, refers to the idea that we got some extra fat on us. These are American troops marching through London. The crowds have lined up to see them. And of course, this makes great copy in American newspapers. Here's a barracks of soldiers. Let's see, what does it say? Interior of a building where troops of the 305th M&P Train Company are billeted. 1918. Office of the Chief Signal Officer. So this is the Signal Corps, which my great-grandfather was in. Don't know, I don't think it was his unit, but you know, you can see them with their equipment there. So let's take a look at where they got into action in the war itself. This is the final German push of 1918. So it's important to realize that that gamble, that race against time is still going on, and the Americans have to get into action pretty quickly because the Germans are making a breakthrough. The long-awaited breakthrough actually did happen. It's called the Somme Offensive of 1918. So what I want you to notice here on the map is this black dotted line was the original 400-mile long trench system that they had dug in 1914. And now here it is 4 years later, and the Germans, with all those extra troops taken from the Russian front, are now actually making a breakthrough. Now this red dotted line shows the breakthrough that they made. Actually made it across the Somme River, and here's Paris, and here's where the Americans go into action. Now, at first, the French were demanding that the American troops be taken and put into French units as replacement troops to French units. And Pershing said, hell no. we came over here as Americans, we're fighting as American units. You're not going to take us and throw us into your meat grinder because you've been doing that for 4 years and look, it hasn't worked, right? So we're going to command our own troops in our own battles. So put us where you need us. But we're not taking us apart. And so this is Cantigny, Belleau Wood, Chateau Thierry, and let's see, Meuse Argonne and Second Meuse Argonne. So these four or five battles on the breakthrough. Now, if you want to, if the British or the French are saying, well, the Americans were late, so what? Excuse me, we were the ones in the way of the push on Paris. It was American troops that stood in the way, that filled in the gap. So I would give some credit to the Americans for staying together and stopping the Germans at these places. And the Germans, these were not the tired Germans of 4 years of warfare. These are specially trained Germans. They're called shock troops. They were given new weapons, like flamethrowers, a new weapon of war. They decided, well, we're going to have to move quickly. If we're going to make a breakthrough, we've got to carry everything we need on our backs. So we're going to carry equipment. We're going to heavily arm ourselves with grenades for moving quickly. We'll toss a grenade in front of us and blow up the guys in front of us and keep on moving. These shock troops, notice there's no mud here. There's no trenches here. Why?
They got past the trenches.
They got past the trenches. They've left that muck and mire and hellhole behind. We have broken 20 miles past the trenches. The breakthrough, the long-awaited breakthrough, finally happened. And these German shock troops are the ones making it happen. With the aid of heavy artillery. This is known as Big Bertha. It's a rail gun. The Krupp's gunworks, remember this is the industrial age, made artillery pieces that were so large that they put on a special rail gun, a rail, track, a flatbed car. So this is that flatbed car right here. It's on a specially designed set of tracks to point the tracks at Paris, and then the gun comes in, raises up, and it can shoot 75 miles. So they can walk, if they've got somebody to tell them where to put the shells. I don't think it was... In modern warfare, they can call in the artillery to pinpoint accuracy, right? They tell the artillery guys where they want it, and they can drop shells right out in front of themselves. Of course, it is dangerous because when shells fall short, you're the victim of your own artillery. But these guys are shelling Paris with this gun only 75 miles away. So Big Bertha is helping. So here are the American troops going into combat. This is, I believe, what is this place?
You said it was a 20-mile break?
I believe they broke through at least 20 miles, if not more. So this says, gun crew from Regimental Headquarters, Company 23rd Infantry, firing a 37mm gun during an advance against German entrenched positions. So there's the pooties. See, there you go. So they've got their helmets and their gear, and they're advancing through what has obviously been hit by artillery very badly. These trees have been smashed apart. So this could be Belleau Wood. I'm not sure. A group of Marines were moving in to combat, and they passed by French troops leaving, and the French troops told them to retreat. And the response from the Marine officer was, "Retreat? Hell, we just got here. We haven't had a chance to fight yet. We're not going to." And that, this word, hell, is a common response to Marines, from Marines, when they're asked if they're ready. Marines, hell. If you ever see that or hear that in a movie, this is where it came from. World War I. There was a movie a few years back where it was one of those alien things where the aliens invaded Los Angeles and the Marines went in to kick them out, and they used that phrase, hell. What's that? Yeah, they still do that. It's that. So every branch of the military has its traditions based on famous moments in their military, struggles and their history, and so they'll keep these references around to call on the history of their units. So the Marines went into combat. They didn't back off, and the cult of the offensive, I say here, was contagious. The Americans had it. It's not until you've been through years of trench warfare and months of futile grind of crossing no man's land that you lose the cult of the offensive. The French and the British and the Germans, well, the French and the British had lost the cult of the offensive. They had stopped. The French, as you recall, had even promised their troops no more offensive actions, defensive only, because their troops were actually literally rebelling and committing mutiny. That's a naval word, but still applies. They were refusing to fight or attack. And so the French, to save face, stopped attacking. Now, the Germans haven't lost the cult. Obviously, it's happening. And neither have the Americans. Why? Because... Why? What's that?
They're fresh.
They're fresh. Yeah, exactly. Right? There's an old saying. You do what you know until you know better. And so the French, now they knew better. And when they told the Americans to retreat, the Americans like, why? We're not you. Of course, it also plays into American stereotypes of the French military. Retreating again? Oh, all right. So we went into battle. One of the famous American soldiers of the war became a hero. Even made a movie about him starring, what was his name? I forgot the name of the actor. But it's called Sergeant, well, his name is Sergeant York. Sergeant York was actually a Quaker pacifist who, I believe he got drafted, and nonetheless, and he decided he did not want to stay home when his own friends from his own area, his own neighborhood, were going off to war. He was a Southerner, so he had been raised in the country, and he was a good shot. So when they gave him the modern weapon, he made use of it. He was he snuck around to a German position and got separated from his unit. So it was all by himself. And he got into a position like a sniper, and he started picking off the Germans one by one who were shooting at his unit that had not yet made it across no man's land. So there he is at an angle next to them, and so they're all focusing on his unit that's sort of attacking, and he's picking them off one at a time. Bam, 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 reload, and kept shooting. And pretty soon, the attack that was called off, he was all by himself. But he was firing and shooting so many German soldiers that the Germans figured they'd been flanked by another unit, and they surrendered. 100 of them surrendered to Sergeant York, who was playing it up. All right, boys, yeah, you cover him on the left and you got him on the right, I'll take the center. He knew he was alone. So he acted it up. And all these German troops come out of the trenches because they think they've been flanked and outgunned. And he marches the 100 of them across no man's land, back to his side, and he couldn't get anybody to take them. They kept telling him to go further back. So he kept marching them and kept marching them. And the Germans were like thinking after a while, wait a minute. You and who else? But they're all disarmed now. He's still got the rifle on him. So they stayed surrendered. and he marched them back to the lines. And they gave him a medal. because he was so brave, obviously, and out. In fact, they gave them the CMH. What does that stand for? At the country
Medal of
music.
Honor.
Congressional Medal of Honor. Yes, at the Congressional Medal of Honor for his actions in battle. Sergeant York. He became famous. I'm trying to think of the name of the actor that was starred in the movie. It's a good one. It was a 1930s film, black and white.
Oh.
Alright, so this image, this map here, I would say a little bit better, shows the bulge that was pushed out. There's Belleau Wood, Chateau Thierry, Amiens. This is where the Americans are fighting, close to Paris. And it works. The American offensive ends up capturing German troops. So these are the tired, worn out Germans in their caps, and here are the fresh Americans marching them to prison camps. Millions of German soldiers surrendered. Millions of German soldiers surrendered. Now, this is a good time to talk about a little bit of sort of the shock this makes to Germany and the rise of Adolf Hitler. Because Adolf Hitler, like a lot of German soldiers in World War I, really couldn't believe that they'd lost the war. Number one, they'd already beaten the Russians, and number two, this huge push into France seemed to be the big breakthrough that everybody had thought about. And when the fighting stopped, it had stopped in France. No fighting ever occurred in Germany. So it was very difficult for Germans to understand how they lost the war. And so they looked around for scapegoats and people to blame. And two of the guys who went to sign the surrender papers were Jewish. So that sort of played into Hitler's stab in the back theory. The stab in the back was that we've been sold out by international conspiracy, that we really hadn't lost the war, but we were cheated out of victory. We'll come back to that story when we talk about the rise of Adolf Hitler. Side note here, personal side note, this is the funeral of Quentin Roosevelt. Theodore Roosevelt had charged up San Juan Hill and wanted to take his own unit over to France. He couldn't, but his sons could. And his youngest son, the fifth child, Quentin, 5. Sorry. What's the word I'm looking for?
Quinceañero.
Anyway, it means 5. He was a pilot, shot down over German lines, and when the Germans recovered the body and found his identification, they knew instantly who he was. He's an international celebrity, is who he is. And so the Germans gave the body back to the Americans for burial, instead of just burying him or leaving him themselves. So Quentin Roosevelt's, the story of his death was given to the president, the former president, at his home at Sagamore Hill in New York. A reporter came to the door and knocked at the door. Roosevelt answered the door himself, and the reporter with hat in hand said, "Mr. President, I've got sad news. Your son Quentin's been killed in action in France." And Roosevelt's first and only words were, in shock, "What am I going to tell Mother?" Because he felt responsible for talking about the heroic stories of charging up San Juan Hill that inspired his own kids to go off into the military. On a more positive note, the other sons lived, and some of them even served in World War II. One of them was a colonel that landed at Normandy in France once again on D-Day. But that shock led eventually, not long after, to the death of Theodore Roosevelt. They said he died of a broken heart. So, armistice. Both sides agreed to stop the shelling, stop the shooting at 11 o'clock on November 11th. 11, 11, 11. 11th hour. And shells were actually literally being fired because they're looking at the wristwatches at 10:59, fire, boom, 11 o'clock, ceasefire. So literally, there were men in trenches popping the corks off of champagne and wine bottles to celebrate the end of the war, and there was a shell flying through the air with their name on it. And men literally died at a few seconds after 11 o'clock because the shell blew up as they were celebrating. Wow. Isn't that sad?
It's sad.
How exactly the last guy to die in the war, right? And you were celebrating the end of the war. Pretty sad. And this today is what known as what in the United States or in America?
Veterans Day.
What's that?
Veterans Day.
Veterans Day, yes. Veterans Day, November 11th is Veterans Day. So no matter what day of the week it falls on, and this year it falls on a Wednesday, we got that day off. They don't care about giving you a 3-day weekend and moving the date, because that's the date. Like Thanksgiving moves around, right? It's always on a Thursday and Friday. You get a 4-day weekend.
Does that mean we have 5 days off, or do we just have these?
You got 1 day off. Sorry. In the middle of the week
That's so nice.
to honor the veterans on Veterans Day.
This is not on Saturday.
Yeah. I don't know if you can see that. I'm going to back up here. U.S. casualties killed in action 49,000 in 1918. And again, we asked earlier what month did they get to the fighting in France, and I don't have the dates. So, we go back to the map though. It does have the dates of the battles. Did anybody write those down? Probably not.
It's just between August and November.
August and November of 1918.
100 days offensive.
The 100-day offensive. Thank you, John. So, as John says, 100-day offensive. So we fought for 100 days in 1918 and lost, in those 100 days, almost 50,000 men. Total, the rest of the number of, so 49,000 of this total are killed, the rest are wounded.
Wait, so the total is killed and wounded?
When you say the word casualties, it means killed and wounded. So KIA is killed in action. So 49,000 of the 112,000 are actually killed.
Wait, if you get wounded and then you recover and you go back and you get wounded again, do those count as like 2 casualties?
Is it per person?
I would say,
So it's just every Purple Heart's a casualty?
yeah, every Purple Heart's a casualty. And I don't know if in 100 days how many people got sent back,
Yeah.
but definitely in wars, men do get sent back. I know World War II is a lot more common. If you were not, if you had not lost, a limb in World War II, you were repaired and sent back. I don't have the casualty figures on this slide for other countries, but this is a picture of my stepmother in Canada. Canadian troops have their own memorial to the soldiers they lost there.